Hey guys, welcome back to r/entitledpeople. In this story, an influencer TikTok Karen slapped my disabled kid at a supermarket, mistaking us for lazy employees. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, "The Worst Teacher Ever." Stepping into Glenwood High was always a source of comfort for me. As a shy and diligent student, I had found my niche there over the past 2 years. The teachers appreciated my efforts, and although I was not part of the popular crowd, I had a solid group of friends who stood by me. Life was good. I pursued my passions in athletics, writing for the school paper, and maintaining respectable grades. Little did I know that my junior year would bring an unexpected challenge that would shake my confidence to the core. English had always been my forte thanks to my insatiable appetite for reading. Mrs. Thompson, my freshman English teacher, had even encouraged me to join the honors track. I embraced the opportunity, relishing the challenge of more advanced coursework. But when I walked into Miss Blackwood's classical literature class in the second semester of my junior year, everything changed. Miss Blackwood had a reputation for being strict, but nothing could have prepared me for the animosity she directed towards me. From the moment I set foot in her classroom, she seemed determined to make my life miserable. I couldn't understand what I had done to offend her. Maybe it was my occasional struggle to stay awake during early morning classes, a side effect of my undiagnosed medical condition and grueling swim practice schedule. But even then, it was a rare occurrence hardly worthy of such disdain. The first sign of trouble came when we received our grades for the initial essay assignment. I had always been a strong writer, thanks in part to my experience on the school newspaper, so when I saw the glaring D on my paper, I was stunned. I approached Miss Blackwood after class, hoping for some guidance on how to improve. Her feedback was vague and unhelpful, suggesting that my analysis was uninspired. Desperate for more concrete advice, I arranged to meet with her during study hall. That meeting was a turning point. Instead of offering constructive criticism, Miss Blackwood spent the entire hour berating me, questioning my intelligence and abilities. I left her office in tears, feeling humiliated and hopeless. My best friend Lila, who was on track to be valedictorian, offered to help me with my next paper. Together, Lila and I poured our hearts into crafting a well-researched and thoughtfully written essay. Lila's work consistently earned top marks, so I was confident that our collaborative effort would impress Miss Blackwood. But when the grades were revealed, I was stunned to see another D staring back at me. Lila was outraged on my behalf. She took my essay to her AP English teacher, Mr. Edwards, under the guise of seeking advice for a writing competition. Mr. Edwards praised the paper, suggesting that it was Lila's typical A+ caliber work. Armed with this validation, Lila asked for a copy of my original essay and presented it to Mr. Edwards as well. Once again, he commended the writing, estimating it would earn an A- at the very least. It became clear that Miss Blackwood had a personal vendetta against me. Lila urged me to speak up to bring the issue to the attention of my parents or the school counselor. But I was hesitant, having never faced a teacher's dislike before. I decided to give Miss Blackwood one more chance, this time seeking her direct guidance. I spent 3 study hall sessions in Miss Blackwood's office, going over my next paper with her. She marked up each draft with red pen, offering suggestions for revision. I diligently incorporated her feedback, hoping that my efforts would finally win her approval. But when the paper was returned, I was greeted with a D+ and a smirk from Miss Blackwood, who congratulated me on my improvement. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stand idly by and allow this injustice to continue. I sought the opinion of Mr. Garcia, my newspaper advisor. Although he didn't teach English, his guidance had helped our student paper win numerous awards. I asked him to review my essay, feigning concern about my struggles in English class. He assured me that the paper was excellent, deserving of a solid A grade. Armed with this new evidence, Lila and I brainstormed our next move. Switching classes mid-semester was virtually unheard of at Glenwood, but we knew that athletes were sometimes granted exceptions to maintain their eligibility. So I decided to approach Coach Williams, the athletics director and a friend of my father's. In a meeting with Coach Williams and my swim coach, I explained my predicament. I was on the verge of losing my eligibility to compete due to my plummeting grade in Mrs. Blackwood's class. I presented my essays, which both coaches agreed were well written and undeserving of such low remarks. They brought in Mr. Johnson, the student vice principal, to assess the situation. Mr. Johnson asked for input from Mr. Edwards and Mr. Garcia, who both affirmed the high quality of my work. I presented the 3 drafts of my latest essay covered in Miss Blackwood's red ink as evidence of my efforts to improve. Mr. Johnson's frown deepened as he reviewed the documents. The situation escalated when my father was called in. He was livid, demanding my immediate transfer to another class and an investigation into Miss Blackwood's grading practices. The administration was hesitant to accuse the teacher of unfair treatment, but the evidence was mounting. A meeting was arranged with Miss Blackwood, my father, Coach Williams, and Mr. Johnson. Miss Blackwood arrived with a smug expression, ready to paint me as an incompetent student who had no place in her honors course. But as the evidence was presented, her facade began to crumble. When confronted with the 3 heavily annotated drafts, Miss Blackwood had the audacity to claim that the notes were not hers, calling me a liar. The room erupted into chaos with raised voices and accusations flying. I was asked to step outside while the adults continued their heated discussion. As I sat in the hallway, the secretary and I could not help but overhear the shouting emanating from the vice principal's office. The confrontation continued right up until the first bell rang, signaling the start of classes. When the door finally opened, the teachers filed out and Miss Blackwood shot me a venomous glare that could have melted steel. Mr. Johnson called me back into his office and informed me that I would be transferred to a standard English class effective immediately. My current grade would be wiped clean and I would be evaluated solely on my performance moving forward. My new English teacher, Mrs. Rose, was a seasoned educator with decades of experience. After the rigors of honors English, her class felt like a breeze. But I was determined to prove that Miss Blackwood's assessment of my abilities had been utterly wrong. So I poured my heart into every assignment, finishing projects well ahead of schedule. Mrs. Rose even asked me to tutor a struggling classmate, Bella, who managed to raise her grade from a -C to a B+ with my help. By the end of the semester, I had earned a stellar 104% in the class. As the school year drew to a close, Mrs. Rose called me into her office. She revealed that she was recommending me for honors English in my senior year, assuring me that Miss Blackwood would no longer be teaching at Glenwood High. The administration had placed me in Mrs. Rose's class intentionally, trusting her judgment to determine the validity of Miss Blackwood's claims about my capabilities. Mrs. Rose apologized for any lack of challenge in her course, but her words opened the floodgates of my emotions. I broke down in tears, realizing that a part of me had begun to believe Miss Blackwood's cruel assessment of my worth. Mrs. Rose comforted me, reaffirming my belonging in honors English. I spent my senior year thriving in the program and dedicating my study halls to tutoring Mrs. Rose's students in need. Despite the years that have passed, the memory of Miss Blackwood's cruelty lingers. Nowadays, as a professional writer, I still find myself grappling with self-doubt, a battle scar from that tumultuous time. Her teaching career ended that fateful year, sparing other students the pain and self-doubt she inflicted upon me. And yeah, ripe stars, I can totally understand what OP means there. I remember a few times myself that I had teachers when I was a kid that said I could not do this or that, and it affected me even years later. Funnily enough though, one thing I was always good at was reading in school. I always loved to read out loud, and I even once won a competition in 5th grade for reading. However, one thing I remember pretty clearly, there was some douchebag classmate that told me that my voice is stupid and he cannot listen to me reading. And well, I guess, look at where I am now. Honestly, that almost feels like some kind of revenge, but then again, I'm not really in contact with that idiot and I don't wanna be. However, it would be interesting to see what he thinks about that statement now. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you wanna support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is the title story, which is titled Influencer TikTok Karen slaps my disabled kid at supermarket for being a lazy employee. Me and my daughter live together in a relatively quiet town on the outskirts of a city. I work from home mostly, which is great as it means I can better support my daughter who has been in a wheelchair since she was 10 after a car accident. I would say she gets on well. It has been a rocky ride, but she has found a way to manage most daily tasks just fine. That being said, as much as I would like to introduce her to new things, she prefers to stick to staying inside on the weekends and occasionally coming with me to run errands. This whole incident began on one of those days. Around a month ago, me and my daughter were just getting a few groceries from our local supermarket, and I'd said to my daughter that she could pick out a magazine and walked with her over to the aisle. I walked away slightly to have a look at something further down, and while my daughter was looking at the magazines on a low shelf, I heard a woman's voice. Not got a great work ethic, have you? The woman said, and I turned to see that she was speaking to my daughter. What? My daughter asked as I began walking over. Well, sitting on the job is a bit lazy, isn't it? I should complain to corporate about this. What do you think, guys? The woman continued, and it was at the last sentence that I realized she was recording on her phone. Is there a problem here? I asked, and I got the sinking feeling that this woman was gonna be a problem. Oh, don't worry, hun. Just filmed a video for my TikTok. One of the employees here seems to not grasp that at work you have to be proactive. The woman rolled her eyes and smirked down at my daughter, looking her up and down like she was still in high school. Don't call me hun. That is my daughter and she doesn't work here. And not that I need to explain it to you, but she is not sitting down. She is disabled and needs that wheelchair. Excuse me, what's your tone with me? And I don't believe that for a second. She looks perfectly fine to me. I reckon she's just faking it to get out of work. I'm not an idiot. Well, clearly you are, because that's not at all what's going on. Who do you think you are? The woman demanded, as if she was the one being harassed here and bothered. Well, I'm her mother, who's becoming increasingly impatient by the behavior of some random stranger being so nasty to her disabled daughter. Excuse me? Stop pretending like you don't know who I am. Do I need to show you my TikTok account? The woman looked genuinely confused, as if she thought we would A. know who she was, and B. see that as a reason to tolerate her awful behavior. No, why on earth would I care about your TikTok? I began before I was rudely cut off as she began speaking to her phone. Guys, I cannot believe this. This staff member is claiming to have a disability to get out of work. Can you believe it? And get this woman right here is claiming to be her mom and saying that she doesn't work here. Looks like I've got 2 Karens today. What are you doing? I asked, beginning to get very fed up with this woman. Live streaming to my fans, duh. I've been from the beginning. Great. What do you guys have to say for yourself? Go on, you were so brave a moment ago. Tell my fans what little work you do, she asked, shoving the camera in my daughter's face. Get that away from her, I said as I slapped the phone out of her hand that she didn't bother retrieving from where it fell to the floor. What the hell is your problem? She screamed at me. Me? What is yours? You cannot just come in here and start harassing me and my daughter and then get mad when we don't just stand here and take it like we are proud to be objects of your stupid TikTok. Stupid? I'll have you know that I make a lot of money. Thank you. All that money and you cannot buy yourself some lessons in grace and decorum? I watched as her face reddened and saw her hand flying towards me in the corner of my eye. Or at least I thought she was aiming for me. Just as I was about to duck out of the way, I realized she was aiming for my daughter and didn't manage to stop her before she had smacked her hand across the face of my daughter. The silence that followed was deafening, but I quickly rushed forward to comfort my now crying child. I heard people around us gasp, people I did not even realize were near us moments earlier. I heard the radio and realized one of the workers was there, calling for security. Wow guys, you should have seen how they were treating me, the woman screeched as she saw what was happening around her. Yeah, okay. Just wait here for security. How could you do something like that? She carried on trying to save face and then scrambled to her phone and picked it up. Oh my gosh guys, I've just been assaulted in the shop by that woman and now they won't stop harassing me. Give it a break, Karen. You just assaulted my disabled daughter. What on earth is wrong with you? I half yelled, thankful as I saw security rounding the corner. They forced her to leave the store and me and my daughter were ushered into the management office where we called the cops. When they arrived, we told them everything that had happened, sparing no details. The manager showed the police the security footage showing the slap clear as day. I told them that we would want to press charges for this and soon we heard commotion outside the door. It was the woman being dragged off to the police station. You cannot touch me! Do you have any idea who I am? My fans will haunt you for this! Put the phone down! No, I want proof of the absolute oppression happening right now! Hey, get off my phone! The voices drowned out as she was ushered out of the store by security and police, and a couple days later we were called to come down to the station ourselves. Alright, sorry, we took so long to get back to you. Turns out there was more to unpack than we thought, the officer said once we were seated at his desk. What do you mean? I asked. Well, it turns out she has a long list of complaints against her that never made it far, as she always played the haters card and was convincing enough that they were just people online. However, these complaints followed a scarily similar pattern as what happened to you. Nobody has been assaulted in the way your poor daughter was though, but she has been harassing disabled people for months. And a lot of it had been filmed and posted to her TikTok for views. I'm disappointed that nobody checked her socials to see if the complaints were real, but anyway, because of this and the undeniable evidence of her assault, she will probably be facing prison time. Me and my daughter left, and a few days later we got a phone call informing us that her accounts were not shut down, but because of the hate she ended up receiving, turns out her livestream caught the entire thing when her phone dropped, she deleted them herself. Although that did not really make much of a difference to anything or anyone, as she was sent to jail for assaulting a minor disabled person. I also filed for a restraining order against her on behalf of my daughter. I did not want any sort of possibility that she would ever be in a position to enter my daughter's life again. My daughter recovered quickly from the incident, both mentally and physically, and funnily enough, it made her more confident to be in public. People at her school had seen it all blow up on TikTok and wanted to be her friend. I don't really get how this whole TikTok thing works, but if it's made her happier, then I guess there really is always a silver lining. The next one is a satisfying petty revenge story. So this just happened today, and I've been dreaming of having a moment like this my whole life. It seems lame, but I had to share. So there is this popular home store I go to quite often because I have an addiction to buying throw blankets and coffee mugs. Because of all this, all the employees at the store recognize me and I'm friendly with them. This worked in my favor today. I pull up to the line with a cart that has 15 items in it. There's only one register at this store and it's pretty empty. There's just one 50-something lady checking out in front of me. It would have been quick, but it took 23 minutes for her to check out. And yes, I timed it. Why, you ask? Well, she had about 20 items and each and everything was scanned. She would haggle the price with the cashier. After arguing about the items for a solid 50 minutes, she gets her total and pulls out a wad of coupons. 90% of them ended up being expired and then yells at the employee that they are still valid. And after this whole ordeal, speeds off in a brand new Lexus in a huff, new dishware and all. So here is my revenge part. I go to the checkout as I normally do, and when the lady speeds back up and parks in the fire lane and runs in the store. She tries to cut out in front of me in line and I quickly step up so she doesn't have room. I make some small talk with the cashier. They quietly complain that this lady does this all the time and I say, "Hey, watch this." I then begin to do the same thing as her and loudly argue the price of everything. "Are you sure that was $12.99? The blue one was cheaper. Maybe I should go back and get that. I think throw pillows were half off. I swear I saw it on a sign somewhere. Oh no, this one looks damaged. Maybe I get a discount?" Meanwhile, the employee is laughing and trying to keep their shoulders from shaking so the lady cannot see us. Me, an employee, spent 15 minutes there and he even slowly wrapped every item even if it wasn't fragile. He wrapped the throw pillow 3 times so it didn't get water damage on my way home. And it has not rained in weeks. I walk out with a grin on my face, thank God for masks, and I hear her screech, "The nerve of some people! Anyway, I think you scanned this item more than once." I already chucked the receipt though, so maybe just a $10 refund? And yeah, ripe stars, I cannot imagine people being entitled enough and stupid enough to try and haggle prices in a supermarket. I mean, if you're in a bazaar or something, okay, but at a supermarket, really? Thank God I've never come across such people. Anyway, the next one is titled Overtime Shenanigans. I, 31 male, started working for my uncle 2 years ago. He has a company with some business partners of his and my work is now being directly under him, learning every perk of running the business and also being a personal assistant to him. We settled on a contract in which I would receive a fixed monthly amount with a bonus of an additional salary by the end of every year, and while I had no overtime pay, I had a total control of my work schedule, and by total, I meant total, where I could come to the job just 3 days a week as long as I delivered the results. My uncle knew my work ethic, so it's kind of a win for him since when needed I would work 60 to 65 hours a week if needed to, and also I could work during a holiday. We have around 10 to 12 festivities days that are non-working days if I were to put it into an American perspective. It's like we had 10 July 4th holidays during the year. Also, I was available on call nearly 24/7 if anyone needed anything from me related to work. Work was running great until September last year when my uncle took a couple of days to travel to another state to meet new clients and one of his associates, let's call him Gordon, took his role in the company for those days to support some of his roles. Due to having worked a 14-hour shift the day before the travel and also having 2 12-hour shifts the week before, I was dead tired. And since we had little to no work piled up, I took an early leave the first day he was there and arrived way after lunch the day after and then started working normally from the 3rd day until he came back a week later. He was furious at my attitude, berating my uncle for even contracting me in the first place, since I don't even work full regular hours and demand among the other business partners, the company has in total 6 owners including my uncle, then I at least punch in my working hours if I don't meet the quota. Those would then be deducted from my monthly payment. There is a ton of labor laws where I live. Employees have a certain amount of hours required to work each month. Every hour short of that is deducted from the monthly payment. and every hour beyond that is paid as overtime. Other partners backed up Gordon's claim, stating that I needed more supervision on what I was doing, which my uncle was forced to comply. His only remark was, since we are doing it by law, it means that we will also pay him overtime according to the law, right? They all agreed, and from October forward I would start punching my hours on the job every day. Cue malicious compliance. That was exactly what I did. Gordon was expecting a decrease on my pay due to being in the company at my least busy week since I arrived, but when in fact I usually pull a crap load of overtime, and also, if they need to call me after I left, they have to punch in the hours from the moment I left until I finished the call, resulting in free overtime pay. One more thing, by law the rate of overtime pay increases the more overtime is done in a month. It's a really weird formula, but to simplify, my average overtime hours pays 1/3 higher than the average overtime hours of other employees that have the same monthly salary as me. My monthly income is now 30% higher due to the overtime I started receiving, and in a busy month that could even get close to 50% higher, even though I'm actually working a little less than before, and Gordon cannot go back in the same situation as before, since my uncle made sure that once I started punching my hours there was no going back and all partners approved. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is how you increase your salary and actually work less. Absolutely brilliant. The next one is titled, Please Have the Coffee. My sister just reminded me about this story. It takes place in 2017. She and I were out for brunch and had a lovely time at an upscale rooftop restaurant in the heart of our city. You know, the kind with a full setting, cloth napkins and white tablecloth. The kind where a pancake entree has the word Melange and mimosas are $16. We had a great time even though the service was a little bit rushed. We get it, Saturday brunch means a lot of tables with a speedy turnover. My sister had been a waitress all through college. We even joked about her applying for the weekend shift since she would make great tips. When it came time to settle the check, we noticed we had been charged for 2 coffees, which we did not order nor receive. While handing the bill back, I asked that they be taken off. Waiter, well, you got coffee. I'm sorry, we actually didn't. See? Show him the pristine empty coffee cups. Waiter, no, there's 2 coffee cups on the table. Me, there are coffee cups on every table. At this point he kind of huffs and rolls his eyes and says he doesn't have the authority to remove anything from the bill. Before I can ask for someone who can, he smirks and says that the manager on duty just went on break and we would have to wait 30 minutes for her. However, he would be asking us to wait at the host's stand since they need the table. My sister and I look at each other and we both get the same idea. Sister, well, okay. Guess if we are being charged for coffee, I would like a refill. Me, oh for me too. And can you bring cream and sugar? It was at this moment that he knew he effed up. We spent another 20 minutes sipping coffee and keeping him from turning the table. We asked for refills once and I asked if they had any raw sugar packets. By the end of it, he was pointedly ignoring us. We kind of giggled about it and I made a very dramatic show of flourishing my card, putting it in the booklet and setting it upright. My sister even tried to flag him down, but he refused to look in our direction. We finished and hung around until he came back with his manager. He was smirking again, big lips, that guy. I gotta say, that facial expression stayed with me. Waiter, sickly sweet. Okay, you two, we have a seating time limit to allow our other guests the opportunity to eat with us. Will that be all today? Me, well, we've been waiting for you to take our check. I was trying to get your attention earlier, but you must have been busy. I offer him my card and the booklet and I've never seen a human turn red so quickly. He mutters that he'll be right back and marches off to run it. While we are waiting, the manager asked us about our experience. We said we both had a great time and we would be back and relate what happened. At least we ended up enjoying the coffee. We paid, left a decent tip and skedaddled. But it felt good knowing that he probably cost himself a ticket's worth of tips over $9 in coffee. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is how you get amazing petty coffee revenge. If you have ever gotten revenge or malicious compliance over coffee, then please let me know about the story in the comments. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.